without further ado, I'm going to attempt to use this iPad to do and teach you the instant offer formula. We're talking about the instant offer. And here's the really cool part is on the instant offer, here's the number one thing people screw up in wholesaling. You ready for this? The ARV. And if you're asking me, what does ARV stand for? It's actually a valid question. It's the after repaired value. What does that mean? In layman's term, it basically means the highest and best use for a property in perfect condition. Maybe not perfect, but ideal. So it would be equivalent to a property that was going to be sold with a realtor on MLS. Does that make sense? Hold on, let me, okay. So after repaired value, if you do not get the correct after repaired value, it doesn't matter what you do in wholesaling because all the numbers get screwed up. So the biggest thing when people submit a deal to me, they go, oh, here's the ARV. And I always ask them, how did you come up with that number? And I want to know where you got it from. It's that simple. If I don't know where you got it from, now, if you got it from your seller, you can take that information, but that doesn't mean it's the ARV. Guys, let me know in the comments if you think, do you think sellers actually lie to you on what the ARV is? I would say 80 to 90% of them do. It's just the truth. And you have to understand that. So we have to talk about how we're going to do comps on properties. So how do you get an ARV? The easiest way is basically do a search for a comp. A comp is nothing more than short for a comparable. Yes, I write like a doctor, but I earn a lot more than a doctor. So a comp is a comparable. And I want you to understand this. Comp means it has to be similar. What is similar? Same beds, same bath, and roughly the same square footage. And you want to be in the same subdivision for the most part. And then if it's a ranch style house, the same style. Now, an example. If you are comping a 4-bedroom, 2-bath with a 2-car garage, don't compare it to 2 ones. It's common sense. So you have to figure it out. I will tell you, the older houses are more challenging because I've seen people with 5-bedroom houses that are like 800 square feet. So to me, it's common sense. You have to figure it out. So for something to be at least 3 bedrooms, it typically has to be at least 1,000 square feet. If it's not, it's usually a house that's been chopped up. So you also want to keep the same within a 10-year period, meaning if a house was built in 1990, I wouldn't go past 2000 and I wouldn't try to go before to like 1980. Now, the really cool thing is most subdivision builders build houses in entire lots. So once you go from one neighborhood to the next, you'll see the houses change. Why am I going over comps? I'm not a realtor. I'm giving you the quick nitty and gritty because most of you spend way too much time doing all this stuff. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. The last thing you have to understand. So the ARV is problem number 1. And then number 2, it always comes down to repairs. Once again, if I don't know what the repairs are to the property you're looking to buy for a wholesale deal, I cannot help you. Why? Why do we need to know the repairs? Because some people discount properties based on what they think the repairs are. And once again, do you think sellers lie to us? They do all the time. Worst case scenario, wholesalers are even worse about this. Never, ever trust your seller or your wholesaler's repair numbers because 95% of the time they are absolutely wrong. And you've got to understand that. So if you get your repair number from the seller, take that information, but try to verify it. And I'm going to give you a tool that you can easily verify. It's at least a guideline to get you started. Now, a lot of you guys doing this virtually, you have to kind of take their word for it. But that's why if you have the chance to get boots on the ground to look at your properties, because the biggest problem with the virtual deals is even if you get the ARV right, if the repairs are 50 grand more than you planned on, there goes all your profit. And I don't want you getting stuck on contracts that don't work. So please never take your seller's repair numbers. You guys are going to laugh, but a lot of times I multiply them by 1.5. So if it's 50 grand, it winds up being 75 grand. In some markets, I actually double it. You got to figure it out what it's in your market to do it. Now, what I'm going to do is share with you a simple, I'm going to get to repairs. Let's talk about comps still. So I got to slide this screen up. Hold on 1 second, guys. So let's do this. Let's talk about, okay, good. You can see it. Let's talk about comp rules. Okay. So we already know to do similar, right? Within 10 years. And then when it comes to square footage, I like to look at under air. Now, if you're like Florida, figure out what a pool adds to it. The funny thing, pools used to add 10 or 20 grand value. Now a new pool at least in the southeast part of the United States, is the minimum is 50 and most of them are closer to like 100. So pools add a whole new dimension. It's just not 10 or 20 grand anymore. And you've got to understand that. So if we understand that on the square footage, I like to look what's under air. Now, if you have decks and pools, it can make the property sell faster and you can add some numbers on it. Figure what that unique number to your market is and go from there. And then what I like to do is within 200 square feet, meaning it's either plus or minus, or if you want to get more general, you can do it within 15% max, 10% minimum. So if you guys got any specific questions about comp, understanding I'm teaching how to comp as a wholesaler, not a realtor. I'm not interested in how a realtor comps because I'm pricing this for a wholesale deal. Now, the really cool part about this is you've got to understand I have rules when you comp. And I'm going to teach you the biggest problem wholesalers have. This is like your meat and potatoes right now. You ready? This is crazy. You ready for this? You have to be on the shot clock. But before I get into the shot clock, I'm going to teach you, you should never comp a property until you determine the seller's motivation. Why? It's real simple. So the shot clock is going to be 10 minutes. You guys already know my rule on the 10 minutes. Unless you want to be a realtor and you want to be one of these wholesalers that says, go get your license and you can JV every deal. Honestly, in my opinion, you're kind of a glorified realtor in that point. I'm teaching you how to get off-market deals. So if I got 1,000 leads, okay, say you got 1,000 leads, say you're blessed and you get 1,000 leads. I want you to understand this. If I'm going to do 1,000 leads, I want you to think about it this way. If you get 1,000 leads and 75 of them wind up being like potential deals, meaning you're talking to them, there's signs of motivation, those 75 times 10 minutes, that's 750 minutes. I don't even know how many hours that is. Let's see how many hours that is. You ready? I'm going to show you why this doesn't work because you're going to be comping all day. So if you cut it down to 75, 750 divided by 60 minutes, that's 12.5 hours of comping. Now for 75 deals, that's not bad. Here's what most of you do. Instead of doing this, you go and do it this way. Say you get 1,000 leads and then you got to spend 10 minutes with each one of them. And that basically equals what? 10,000 minutes divided by 60. So if you do this, you might as well go ahead and just get your realtor's license because you just created 167 hours of work. Do you understand what I'm saying? Please stop comping properties before you talk to the seller. It's just a huge time suck. And the only reason you're doing this, number one, either a guru taught you how to do this, or number two, you're following the realtor model. So define what you want to do. But I'm here to tell you, do not waste time doing comps all day. It's just endless. Listen, 12 and a half hours is a lot of time commitment. Now with 75 deals, I will do it. But the reality is those of you that spend all your time comping, it's just a waste of time. You're wasting time. Listen, if I contact 100 sellers and I get it down to 10 of them that want to talk to me, of that 10, I'll probably get it down to 5 or 6, and then I'll go into a 10-minute comp. Do you understand the way I'm teaching you it? But most of you, because you want certainty and you want to get your offer accepted on the first time, it is the worst way to do wholesaling. You are wasting your time. Do you know a realtor, before they go to every listing, they spend on average 2.5 hours comping? I want you to wrap your head around that. So unless you want to be a realtor, if you're spending more than 10 minutes comping a potential motivated seller, you are acting like a realtor. It's just a waste of time. Guys, the only way you're going to know the sales price is when you actually sell the thing. So you have to buy it at a discount. So if you're not going to get a discount, why are you spending all this time comping your properties? It drives me nuts. And I want you to completely understand that. So let's talk about that. We know we're not going to do that. So how do we get the correct comps? This is easy. I am not a tech wizard. So hold on one sec. I got to slide this thing up. So how do we get the correct comps? Once again, it is not rocket science. So what I'm going to do, if I want to get the best comps, you can simply go online and look at stuff. Remember, you have 10 minutes. So think like a seller. What is it? What is the one thing all sellers look at? They look at Zillow. So just go to Zillow and get it over with. It doesn't mean it's right, but know what the number is because the seller is going to have that information 9 times out of 10, and you got to be able to deal with it and figure it out. And then you can look at the for sales for similar types of properties, whatever you need to do. You can use Trulia. You can use realtor.com. Yes, that's a realtor tool, but you might as well use it to your advantage. What I like to do is you could also use one of the comp valuing services, listrei.com. I find they have a much more conservative value. You can do something like that, or you can do zacdata.com. You don't have to, guys. In the old days, I had to go to Realtor to get a comp, and I had to tell them to give me the most conservative comp you have. Now, understanding comp is a range. It is a range. And how does a range work? A range has a low and a high. If you can get rid of the high and the low and find something right around there, that's probably going to be your best range. There is never a set number for a comp. I don't know why people like, it's got to be this number. It's got to be that. That's not how it works. And you've got to understand that. So the add-ons, when we talk about decks and pools, find out what's unique to the market you're doing. So if you're doing it local, it's kind of easy. You can figure it out. As I said, in the old days, a pool maybe added 10 grand to my deals. It's completely different now. It's around 40 to 50K in Florida. And depending on how customized the pool is, I mean, I just looked at a house with a $300,000 pool. I didn't even know you can make them like, it was almost like hotel quality. It was absolutely insane. So what I want to do is let's go back and let's talk about repairs. And then we're going to dive into the instant offer system. And then we're going to wrap this all up together. I know it's a lot of information, but I'm going somewhere with it. I promise you. So if you don't have this worksheet, it is inside of freewholesaling.com. Go over there. I share it all in there for you. And I want you to take a careful look at this. This is just an estimator. So when your seller gives you numbers, go in and verify it. Like go in and use this chart. And then after a while, you'll get really good at figuring out what the numbers are. By no means is this a fail-proof method. It does have some holes, but for the most part, this is going to cover. And remember, you have light, you have medium, and you have heavy. What do I mean by that? If it's a light rehab and it's 1,500 square feet or less, it should be around 15 grand. And honestly, I would stretch it to 15 to 20,000. It used to be 10. We've updated these numbers. If it was medium, you add another 10. And if it goes to heavy, you basically almost 2.2 of that number. And then it works over as the houses get bigger. And remember, guys, these are cookie cut stapler houses. We're not talking about custom, large, beautiful homes. Once you get past homes over 3,000 square feet, the numbers just get way out of whack. So I don't teach you how to do rehab, but it's important you price in your rehab numbers. Stop taking your seller's number for word. It's usually wrong. It's just crazy. I just take it and I absorb it in and I move on there. So let's talk about how to use the instant offer formula and how you can use it in your business. So let me move this over here. Cover your eyes for a sec because I got to scroll this up. Okay. So on the instant offer, and you've got to understand this. And then we're also going to talk about non-disclosure states at the end. I did not forget about it. So first off, the old instant offer was what? 70% minus repairs, 70% of ARV minus repairs, minus your assignment fee, right? And that's your offer. Guys, you know that doesn't work in today's market. Honestly, if you get anything of this, just take it. It's a home run. You'll do very well. And you need to make it work. Now, a good question here. I'm going to just pop it up because I see it on here. How do you know the difference between medium and heavy? Honestly, it's a very visual and it can be a smell test. Heavy, it's going to have smell and it looks terrible. Medium, it looks terrible but doesn't quite smell yet. Light, I could possibly live here. That's how you do the, that's how you kind of pass the test on that. Hopefully that helps. So the problem is the 70% was what I was taught when I started, and every offer, like I stuck to it. Like it was just like my life depended on it. And I want you to understand 70% on a very small property, it makes sense. Let me give you an example. Say you had a $50,000 property. Maybe you're in a low market. Most of you aren't. I know that, but I'm just going to give you why this number doesn't work. And say you multiply it by 70 and you make an offer of 35K. Actually looks pretty good on paper. That would be the normal discount. Now, assume the property was say $400,000. 0.70, you have to offer $280,000. You guys know if I'm going to go from 400 to 280K, most sellers are going to blow you out of the water. It's just the truth. Okay. You want to know a little bit of secret on the instant offer formula? is you want to make an offer where you're actually going to make money and it qualifies as a great wholesale deal. Now, my favorite part on doing these, I wish I could. So if you get 70%, run with it. You could tell a monkey how to do that, but now you have to put logical education. What is the difference with today's sellers that wasn't so acceptable 10 years ago? They are armed with information. They have data. They know what their property's worth. So in the old days, there wasn't a lot of information. And by the way, those of you in the non-disclosure states, in my opinion, you have a competitive advantage over your sellers. Why? Because all the information is held private and you can still get that information. And I'll show you how to do it. But when it comes to making an offer, you've got to understand is 70% is an old school rule and it doesn't work anymore. So what is the sweet spot to make an offer? I'm going to tell you right now, put it in writing. And once again, we want to find an offer. You know what offer really works? Is if you know what the target price your seller will take and you have a buyer that'll pay more, take it. Like, why do you have to have a 70% rule to do that? So the first thing I'm going to look at is my risk factor when making a wholesale deal. So in the beginning, if you have no money for anything, for closing, for marketing, you're going to have to hustle. And you know what? If you find a house that's the seller takes 50 grand and you can find a cash buyer that'll pay you 53 grand for it, take the profit. Okay. So those of you that are just trying to get your feet in the door and you're very, very limited, you're going to have to hustle, and it's fine. And it's okay to take 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, but you can't do that the rest of your life because you won't make it. So the reality of those of you that have a few more tools in the shed is you can take a little bit more of a risk. So what I'm going to do is, number one, if I have a cash buyer and I've built a great cash buyer list, I have intel. And when I have intel, I know how to take these deals down. I know exactly what my cash buyers will pay for it. And if I have a cash buyer lined up and ready to go, especially in today's market, and say I have a property under contract for 150K and I have a cash buyer and he'll pay me 165K, who cares what percentage you offered ARV? And the reality is the percentage number is actually, so if say it's 70% is the old school rule, but what if the ARV is wrong? It doesn't matter what you do with this number because the number's never going to work. And that's what I keep telling you guys, hanging up on the 70% is ridiculous. I will tell you this, most wholesale deals wind up being anywhere on average, if you have a great cash buyers list and you're minimizing your risk, most of the deals wind up between 76 and 83%. Stop focusing on this part of the offer because it doesn't really matter. Now, 83 is about the cap because I want you to think about a seller. What does a seller look for when they go to sell a property? I'm going to show you. We're going to keep moving on here. I got too much in my brain sometimes. So here's the two things. So as long as you focus on the right list, code violations, government lists, there should be forms of motivation in that list. So somebody on one of these government lists, guess what? When they go to sell it, they typically don't want to pay a realtor fee. How much is a realtor fee, guys? 6%, maybe 5% in some markets. They don't want to pay closing costs, roughly around 2%, and that they definitely don't want to negotiate. The negotiation on typically is like 3%, and then they don't want to do any repairs. And most property on average need about 5% in repairs. So let's add up these numbers, guys. 6, 8, 11, that's 16%. I want you to do the math. What's that put us around 84%? That's where a lot of these sellers will start. And I want you to understand, all you have to do is get that 84% down to like 76, 78%. And this is where your assignment fee is. But you have to consider, do you have a robust cash buyers list that will help you get the deals? Now, here's the reality is I can give you 76, 78, 83. It depends on what you call the ARV. Because if your ARV is inflated by 15%, none of these numbers matter. And that's what I'm telling you guys. You're focusing on the wrong number. What I'm trying to teach you is buy your wholesale properties at the lowest price possible because your cash buyers are going to beat you up for it. And what you think the ARV is, what your seller thinks the ARV is, and what your cash buyer thinks your ARV is, they're all different numbers. So why are we sitting here focusing on the instant offer on like the numbers? So this teaches you how to work it back from the seller's perspective. When somebody contacts my company off the list. They're trying to skip the realtor. They typically don't want to pay closing costs. They don't want to do any repairs, and they definitely don't want to negotiate. So people always say, why would someone take a discount? The average person that calls off the list, they already expect a 10 to 12% discount. Now, if the motivation is there, meaning they need to sell the house due to repairs, a financial issue, or something like that, all you have to do is walk them off the ledge that last 5 or 6%, and it's not hard to do. Think about it. We need to help sellers in spite of the actions they take. So I have a lot of sellers. I walk in the houses, there's no windows, there's holes in the roof, and they're crying and, hey, Rick, I really need to sell this property. I have to be able to buy that property and create a profit and help the seller at the same time. If you can't do it all, move on. I tell everyone I'm making a profit off the property, and I am giving you the awesomeness of convenience, discretion, and I'm going to give you the value of a speed. Why? Because I've been doing this 21 years. But I started in a lot of you guys' shoes the same way. And I'm here to tell you the instant offer. Here's the key is get the right ARV, get the right repairs. And the key is you have to come up with that number, take the input of your sellers and whoever else is involved, especially realtors. They don't know what these numbers are. And then if you decide that the seller has motivation, here's the biggest part of the instant offer. If they have motivation, then you comp it. How long do you comp it? 10 minutes max. Now, everyone says, hey, Rick, how do I comp a property if it's like odd shape in the middle of nowhere? Comp it based on what it would rent for. And if you don't know how to do that, go over to freewholesaling.com. We teach you how to do it. You basically come up with what we call a cap rate, which is short for capitalization. And all you do is take all the rents and you minus off the tax, the insurance, leave some room for vacancy, like 20, 25%, and that'll give you a number. And then that total net number, you divide it by whatever sale price you think is correct and come out with a cap number. Now, we don't really do caps on single family houses, but you have to so a cap rate is basically an ROI. That's all it is, guys. So if you have a cap rate of 10%, that's a decent number, but keep in mind, you're only going to get cash flow on the property. You're probably going to have the same problems if you go to sell it that the seller's trying to have with it. So the whole idea of the instant offer is when you identify your list is stop comping everything before you talk to the sellers. It is a huge time suck and it doesn't work. And I'm here to tell you, if you would just fix this part of your wholesale game, you will go to new stratospheres. Remember, I'm here to simplify wholesaling for you, not complicate it. A guru telling you to go on MLS to me as a newbie is absolutely insanity. Where is the motivation going to be on MLS? And then did I get in this business to be a licensed realtor to talk to other realtors? I have no problem with realtors, but let's face it, they don't like wholesalers. 9 out of 10 realtors have a negative connotation when it comes to wholesalers. So that's why I just stay out of their arena. It doesn't mean I don't do deals with real estate agents, but I never make that a primary focus of my business. And honestly, calling real estate agents, trying to negotiate, if you want to kill time, do it. But for the most part, unless you have an inside track on that property, huge time waste. Prove me wrong otherwise on it. So guys, that is really it on the instant offer. You've got to understand that you have to simplify. If you want to learn more on how to do it, go over to freewholesaling.com.